My rescue journey has been a long and interesting one. I started off as an adopter who wanted to help other cats, so I volunteered my time at a rescue group to help clean the cages and play with the cats until they got adopted. Now, I've always been rooting for the underdog all my life, so when I saw that the scared and shy cats got overlooked over and over again, it really pulled at my heartstrings. I wished I could do something about it. Fast forward a bit, and I got to know one of the rescuers over there in that group, and she asked me if I could foster a cat. This 6-month-old named Molly just couldn't be put back outside where she came from because she came from a Starbucks drive-thru. She thought that Molly was a cat who just needed some time to acclimate, but then would become friendly fairly quickly. And the reason why we thought this is because when you pet her, she didn't hiss or swipe and just let you pet. Unfortunately, now after all the work that I've done, I've come to realize that Molly was beyond scared. She was petrified. And that's why she was letting us pet her, because she was not just in fight or flight mode, even worse, she was in freeze mode. And we'll talk more about that later. So I tried everything that was out there in terms of traditional approach. I tried to pet her with a 3-foot stick at first, then a 2-foot stick, then a 1-foot stick, etc. I took advice from people on this traditional approach, but none of it worked. Molly was scared, she was pissed, she would swipe. I had scratches all over my arms, lots of blood, and I even had to wear long sleeves in the summertime just to hide all the cuts that I had. So I knew this wasn't working out and I had to try something different. And there was no other resource out there, so I had to make it up as I went along. I switched gears, I stopped all the traditional activities and started to think of things from Molly's perspective and really tried to empathize with her. So think of how I appear to her, how actions appear to her, what her environment looks like to her, how she may perceive something. And through that, Socialization Saves Lives was born. There were some things that worked and I threw those out, some things that worked and I kept those, but then there were some things that didn't work and I threw those out the window. So Molly really taught me a lot of the fundamentals. Then from that point, I started helping other cats and continued to refine the toolkit that I had. However, at that time, I just had my toolkit and I didn't really have a methodical program like I do now. Instead, what I did was every time a rescuer would ask me for help to work with a foster or an adopter, I'd literally drive an hour and a half to that person's home and sit with them, teach them, try things with the cat, and try to figure out what should the next step be with this cat based on how they're responding, and leave some homework that way. But this wasn't really a long-term sustainable thing, right? So I literally did this for over a year, maybe 2 years or 3, I don't remember at this point. But at one point I had to help somebody in Copenhagen, and obviously going to her home was not a possibility. So we started trying this video chat thing. After that, I was able to start switching all of my work to video chat, especially because when I had kids, I just didn't have the ability to drive to people's homes anymore. With each cat, I started to learn that there were components that were really effective and just repeatable. And from there, started to build out a very methodical approach, which you now see as the Socialization Saves Lives method or program. I also have actual rescue experience, right? So I've socialized cats on my own as well as helped others. So hundreds of cats at this point, but a number of them were also cats who I rescued myself. And I just want to give you a little bit of a story because I hope it inspires some people who see a cat in need and feels like, oh, none of the rescuers can help. So I'm sorry, cat, you're out there on your own. Instead of having to think of it that way, think of it as you as a person. Even one person can make a difference. So I had found out about these cats in Brooklyn who needed help. There was someone in Australia who would help cats all over the world. And she had heard from somebody that there were these kittens in Brooklyn who needed rescue. She was able to find a rescue group in Maine who was willing to take them in. But all that needed to be done was the cats needed to get trapped, held for a few days, and driven up to Maine. So I asked around for rescuers, around with rescuers who I knew, to see if any of them could help trap these kittens. Unfortunately, everyone was overwhelmed and didn't have time. So instead of leaving the cats out there, I thought, let me figure this out. I bought some traps. Well, I technically bought one trap. I bought one trap, asked one of the rescuers to show me how to use it, took a TNR online course, watched the videos, and went out there and trapped the kittens. I didn't know what I was doing. I had 3 kittens total that I had to trap, and I didn't realize I was supposed to have one trap per cat. So I had my one trap and a 24-inch crate in the trunk of my SUV. I trapped one kitten, brought that into the back of the SUV, closed us into the SUV so that the kitten couldn't escape, and somehow maneuvered to put these slightly feral young kittens into the 24-inch cage, one at a time, and then go back out, get the other one, come back, and repeat it all over again. So I was quite lucky that nothing bad happened. But they got rescued. I drove them to Maine, and they ended up going to the rescue group and finding good homes. Side note too is I was not an experienced driver, so even driving from New Jersey to Manhattan was a big deal to me at the time. This was before I started doing heavy socialization teaching or guidance. And so driving to Maine was a bit of, kind of scary, but I've come to realize that when a cat's life is at stake, I can find the courage to do pretty much anything. And I think you can too. So please, 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 just because a rescuer does not have time to do it, it's really not that hard, and it's something you can learn too. Just reach out to rescuers for guidance and advice, and they will be more than happy to walk you through, here are the steps to do, here are the supplies you need, etc. And one person really can make a difference. So fast forward again a bit from that. So in addition, because I started rescuing, that was my very first rescues, I started being able to trap myself when needed, take in cats when needed, and eventually created Hopewell Rescue, which is a 501c3. And through this 501c3, I do direct rescue myself, very low volume because I'm a one-woman show, but I also try to help other people who don't really, maybe non-rescuers who are trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. So if you want to help, certainly you can donate to Hopewell Rescue, and just know that it helps kitties in need, and it helps maybe with some supplies for people who don't have the means to rescue, buy the supplies for rescue.